who has been struggling pretty hard, Atlas.
They most certainly have. And look, it wasn't the exciting MVP. In spring, they were finding creative ways to win. In summer, they were finding creative ways to lose, Papa Smithy. And that wasn't even a creative way to lose yesterday against OMG.
Yeah, the creativity certainly has been a staple of MVP previously. Now the question is, can they find something new? They tried super standard. That was their approach in their first series. Not enough to get over OMG, although they did have some high points in the early game. The bans have already started, and already quite a lot of targeting specifically towards Ian on the side of the LMS.
Yeah, the Syndra is going to be taken away from Ian. Second time we've seen that ban against him. The Galio are going to follow up on the blue side, which is interesting, as there's another Kog'Maw ban and that Zac being taken away from MVP.
So far, the only completely banned champions, there's been 3 that have been banned in all 6 games, are Caitlyn, Galio, and Zac. Galio and Zac, Caitlyn joins the list. So far, the meta has stayed the same, and I love the final ban from MVP. This leaves picks open, but Dreamer was a god yesterday for Machi in their upset win over OMG on the Thresh. These two teams both played OMG yesterday. Machi with the surprise victory. MVP went down kind of as expected. It leaves a lot open, and we know the priority for Ian specifically on the Karma is a takeaway pick from the side of Machi.
Yeah, both of his successful champions now dealt with by the LMS squad, so we don't know necessarily where the Karma is going, as Dreamer doesn't have his most played champion in the Thresh, most played by a large margin as well back in the LMS for this season. And the Rek'Sai is going to be left open, of course. Tazan and Beyond both loving that pick, we heard from the desk.
But we're kind of seeing the extension of the current meta, where a lot of teams yesterday happy to leave Elise open as a first pick and take Rek'Sai as an answer. MVP very clearly showing, hey, we just value Rek'Sai over Elise. That was implied yesterday when they were happy to leave up a power pick for many other teams. But this gets the confirmation. Beyond was the Tiamat Rek'Sai innovator when it came to rush of items. He had a great early game yesterday, and then fell away as his team fell apart around him. And this is an interesting pick here.
Actually.
Seeing Maha as a takeaway Kalista pick, D was one of the question marks. The dip in performance from D between seasons. The bot lane was a source of strength for Machi in spring, fell away in summer. D looked confident, and the very single target Phantom Dancer edition of the Kalista. And that's why you see the takeaway pick by MVP.
Yeah, they are going to take that one. It is going to be the Ivern locked in, though. This is one of Tazan's picks that he's picked up recently as well. And the Cassiopeia actually locked away. So Apex has played like double the games on Cassiopeia in competitive play other than his second highest pick, something like that. This is ultra comfort. And we did see both of these picks banned away against Machi the last time we saw them head out onto the Rift. But I'm really interested that Max isn't grabbing the Rakan here, Papa Smithy.
I mean, they might be just looking for the mid lane pick, expecting there to be double ban, because now Karma is no longer a flex pick.
True, yeah.
Cassiopeia is cemented as a mid lane pick, unless we see some craziness in the top. Who knows? Certainly at this tournament, we could still see a Cassiopeia top. Ian will just take the Orianna. Currently 0-6 if you include yesterday's loss, a previous staple of Ian's champion pool. Makes sense given the Wombo engage potential of the ball carrying from the Rek'Sai into the Fate's Core. Not clear on the support just yet, but this is a pick that traditionally has worked for MVP. In summer, certainly is not. Got pushed in like crazy yesterday, you'll remember, by the Corki. So surprising to see them jump on it again, but they just continue to pick for comp, and the mad scientists seem to have shut up shop, and they're just going, Korea Light was what the analyst desk said, and when it comes to MVP, a very standard draft so far.
Yeah, and it doesn't exactly make me feel all that comfortable, Papa Smithy, as an LCK commentator.
You see the Narban very much signaling that there'll be a Renekton first pick on the second round of draft. Right now, the top lane pool is getting pinched from both sides. Certainly could be a Renekton ban coming through on the Machi side.
Well, Jace is going to be banned away as well, so staying towards the top side of the map. Theoretically, of course, with Cassiopeia locked in, it's the top lane Jace that's being singled out. And now Machi Esports to ban away one more champion. We'll see what it is going to be as the Renekton is taken. So I like that. MVP had set themselves up for that one, and it's not going to be the case. Things like Kled are certainly still there, unless MVP wants to head towards a support pick and get that counter pick matchup on the top side.
And I think leaving last pick for top lane is pretty big for the side of MVP. Easy, why it may not have had such a strong summer season, is one of these carry tops, loves the Fiora, loves to get blind pick pressure, may still take the Fiora as well. You were asking for Kalista Rakan pretty religiously yesterday, Atlas. We're getting it a second time, and the Korean teams, after seeing the Rocks Tigers, Songyun and Ki, really show us the potential of this long-range initiation duo. MVP just has initiation upon initiation, pick CC and AoE CC across the line.
Yeah, and Bang & Wolf, of course, demonstrating it last night as well. That final game against Flash Wolves was pretty atrocious from a Flash Wolves perspective because there wasn't a lot they could do against Wolf's Rakan, and Max has demonstrated that his Rakan looks pretty good as well. Their only victory that they picked up after that massive 12-game losing streak was bought back by Max on the Rakan.
CD running with the Tristana, a big pick around the world, less so in Korea, but might start picking up. Was always seen as a pick into the Kalista, because when they stand up with their auto attack based abilities, the bomb on the side of Tristana, the Rend on the side of Kalista, Tristana wins out those trades and can disengage as well. Here comes the Jax. It's become a new big pick into Rumble, into Jarvan as well, but actually turning the Jax into a teamfight victory, into a match victory. I shouldn't even say teamfight victory because, hell, he probably should be saying in the side lanes. We saw Ziv get a free lane yesterday, you'll remember, for AHQ, and yet they still lost the match against RNG because actually turning split push pressure into a match win is one of the more difficult things for a team to do macro-wise. And given MVP struggles, it's interesting to see them kind of go 4 initiators and a split pusher because suddenly they split identities, and now the question will be, can they manage all their resources and get the most out of the Jax instead of teamfight Jax, which is what happened for MVP when they ran this Jax against SKT and then ended up teamfighting with him anyway.
Yeah, this is an extraordinarily similar composition than we saw out of SKT at the end of the day. You mentioned the Korea Light situation. Well, they are certainly staying with that one. You are switching out the Talia for the Orianna and the Elise out for the Rek'Sai. However, otherwise, still has a very similar flavor with a lot of wave clear coming out of that mid lane, and they can buy space for ADD to get work done. But are they going to be able to move around the map and answer the pressure whenever they collapse on that Jax? Because Huni was basically an initiation tool by baiting the enemy team to come at him.
And then the other variable is the Ivern on the side of Machi. They mentioned pre-tournament they were so confident in running Ivern in basically any situation. Ivern's so little a pick in Korea, only picked a handful of times this year. Will they just focus on the lanes, get the Jax ahead, or will they actually attack the Ivern, which is the reason we saw so little Ivern in Korea, because people just said, hell, invade the Ivern, he can't skirmish, take away his camps, and all the power of Ivern goes away.
Well, of course, Ivan does still have an opportunity to get into the jungle early on, steal things away if he's not discovered. So we'll see whether MVP are prepared to play against that, because you have to assume that they have done some of their research. As, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to hop onto the Rift for our first game of the day here at Rift Rivals. We'll see whether MVP is going to be able to find redemption or whether Machi is going to bring it to 2-0, 100% of the LMS victories here at Rift Rivals so far.
So interesting to track this particular match. Pre-tournament, you looked at it and you said, okay, these are the two teams who have shifted the most from their ladder position in the spring season. Both these teams down the bottom of their respective regions. What should we make of it? But that previous thought about what sort of a match it was kind of flipped on its head when Machi got the biggest upset of the tournament by far, taking out OMG in their match yesterday. MVP, they were stylistically different, but still predictably went down to OMG. So who the favorites are here is really hard to tell. Sure, the LCK is a very strong region, but MVP's struggles makes it very difficult to predict them the victors. I like some of the things they've done with the draft, but they've already shown once they struggle to make the Jax pick work. We need to see a new MVP today, or they may really be the 0-2 team for Korea.
Yeah, and have they prepared against the likes of this Tristana that we haven't seen a lot of, the Ivern there as well, as MVP are going to be able to clear out some vision and move over towards this red buff. Now D and Dreamer turn up. Beyond has taken way too much damage. The exhaust comes in. D, rocket jump over the top, but is it a bait? First blood is going to go to the Cassiopeia, and they're getting the resets. D's looking for one. Double kill for Apex. And oh my god, it's all gone wrong already for MVP.
Yeah, the local crowd goes crazy. MVP, like I mentioned, looked for a level 1 to stop the prepping of camps coming through from the Ivern, but it was well scouted. They knew there was vision there. They still were able to clear it out, but then from multiple different flanks, Machi were able to close in, take them out. 2 kills, and 2 kills to a Cassiopeia, who will enter lane, not be able to spend the gold, but the tier, the scaling could just be tier Rod of Ages at a very fast pace. And MVP, they didn't necessarily protect their flanks. They went in as a 4-man engage, and they were not set up for the collapse.
Yeah, and Apex could probably go back and buy a tier right now if he wanted to. He does have that corrupting potion, but had to get to lane to pick up some of these minions. Beyond is going to be okay, but that is his first camp that he's taken now.
And consider that Machi had to use basically no summoners. Only the exhaust was used on the side of Machi, whereas Maha used double summoner. You want to start trading pretty aggressively early as Kallistas. Once you get 5 points into your E, it's actually very easy for Tristana to win those trades against the Kallista if they just left-click each other and use the abilities. So it's actually a pretty big concern here. And Maha has to enter lane with no summoners, not a lot of presence from the Rakan early either. Problems upon problems stacking up for MVP.
Yeah, and that is the tier picked up as well as the Dark Seal for Apex. So Ian's life just got extraordinarily difficult there in the mid lane. Thankfully, you don't get a lot of battle stats from that tier, but you will be able to stack that one up. And the extra mana that you have as a Cassiopeia means that you're going to get Twin Fanged all the goddamn time. It's quite frustrating to deal with if you are Ian. And it does mean that the wave clear that Orianna should have against the Cassiopeia is going to be nullified.
Yeah, the best phase of the laning is pre-9, before you can kind of AFK clear as the Orianna with QW, with your command attack into the dissonance. Having basically infinite mana, having a tier so early, and the mana staying naturally on the kit of the Cassiopeia means that you can get the most pressure in the early phase, maximize it. You don't really have to consider your mana usage. You can just click E, Twin Fang, Twin Fang, Twin Fang, ensure that health is low on the side of Ian, and then start contesting camps if you're Taizan. So how much this empowers the jungler of Machi specifically, the Ivern, to invade is really the big win from the 2 early kills.
Yeah, and also Taizan was playing fantastically well based on pressure that the rest of his laners were putting out. It was intelligent League of Legends that M17 were demonstrating against OMG yesterday, especially in the early game. Get that push in the mid lane, get that level 3 early using that experience Quinn, and it was looking very, very controlled from Machi, and we'll see whether they're going to be able to continue that one, as now Taizan has hit that level 4 before Beyond, and don't let the weird smaller number confuse you, because this is an Ivan game.
I think control is going to be one of the big terms here, but specifically around objectives. That shouldn't necessarily be a surprise given the meta that we're in, but the reason why I call it out specifically is Infernal Drake as the first spawn on the bot side, Rift Herald spawning around 10 minutes. Depending on when those Drakes are started, there's actually attractive objectives on both sides of the map on the first spawn. So where teams invest the small amount of control wards they can actually get in the first 8 to 10 minutes, which team monopolizes which side, because if you give away both sides of the jungle, already there's such a big neutral advantage. Beyond his mid lane.
Yep, the knockup's going to come in there as Apex is going to flash out of the way, but it doesn't matter. Beyond grabs it with the E, and that is going to be the first kill for MVP after a disastrous level 1.
Yeah, big experience also going over, given that the 2 kills were there on the side of Apex. Uses both summoners and can't get out. Great angle on Beyond coming in, and he didn't even have to invest his flash to make it work. So at the end of the day, Apex was not playing to the side that his jungler was on, didn't have any vision on the top side either, and it's just kind of a laning mistake from the side of the mid laner Apex here, because he had the potential to play to the control ward on the bottom side, was playing to the left side of the lane, and got punished.
And gets an inopportune back timing there as well. It always feels bad to have a Sapphire Crystal in your back pocket, Papa Smithy, and he's building towards that Catalyst to get towards his Rod of Ages, but couldn't quite finish that one off. So uncomfortable for the Cassiopeia. Will make it back to the lane and continue to push things out. In the meantime, he's going to head back and get Sorcerer's Shoes. So wanting to try and buy back this early game.
Yeah, and the Sorcerer's Shoes buy has 2 different facets. Extra movement speed to try and sidestep the Q and stop there being the confirmation of the poison, but also flat magic penetration, because Beyond didn't have to flash. A return gank the moment that Orianna hits 6, bursting down the Cassiopeia, is an option available for the side of MVP. So definitely think that this buy signals a lot more focus from Beyond in the mid lane than usual. Usually Ian is kind of left on an island, on Karma, on Orianna.
Yeah.
The Syndra games are a little bit different, but in this particular game, I think he's licking his lips and saying, okay, the Cassiopeia may have 2 kills early, but try to snowball around mid lane and get this Orianna ahead.
Well, looking to try and just clear out waves, as Ian does like to do, but thankfully Beyond able to help out. Now looking for a potential second gank, knowing that there is no flash. This time, of course, Petrifying Gaze is there.
Beyond actually read this situation pretty poorly. Cassiopeia instantly went to the left side of the lane, so he should be kind of aware of the fact that there is
Oh, wow, that's actually the flash to come in. Daisy goes down as well, but Apex is already dead. Beyond's just looking to try and get out of there, and there's no mana on Taizan. He may even fall as well, has to use the flash. As Daisy says, Dad, where did you go? and he's going to be able to make it underneath that turret. So no 50 gold for MVP, but it's already evened out.
Oh.
That is more gold now available for MVP.
Easy has to flash away from another auto attack from AD would have taken him down. The laning is going horrifically here as bot lane.
Yeah, Max is going to jump back to Maha, who does invest the flash. The rend is still going to be there. Decent damage. That explosive shot is going to go off, but nice trade for MVP, and things are just really starting to swing back in their favor. And I thought that after that level 1, this was looking like the second Machi win, but MVP are pulling it back nicely.
And that's our high expectations. We're very used to games where a couple of kills come in and then the Rock continues to gain moss and the game is decided from an early move. But this is very much the 9th place team from Korea against a struggling team. Not yesterday for Machi, who had that great result over OMG, but in general, their domestic results have not been fantastic. And what we saw was Beyond not noticing that there was a control ward in the area, seeing Cassiopeia adjust her positioning in lane, and yet they still get the gank off with specifically the Ivan around top lane. So just a mismanagement there. D's rotated.
And he's taking a lot of damage there as well. As you can see, ADD wants to find that big flash, but the Cataclysm's there, and he's going to be taken down. D very close to dying. Does at least get that trigger seed to keep him alive. We'll be all right.
Entering lane against the Jax, one of the best ways to shut him down. One of the reasons we didn't see Jax in previous metas was couldn't deal with lane swaps. And this is the 9-minute lane swap that's gone away in Korea recently. Is called by MVP, but not like Maha has a lot of wave clear at this point in the game. Going to need a lot of help from the rest of his team.
Yeah, Beyond is here, but underground at the moment. Doesn't have all of that wave clear if he can't get towards that minion wave. D is very, very low, so doesn't want to approach the turret, and that is going to spell a disengage from Machi on the top side.
Still, there are very important neutral objectives. Soon to be the Rift Herald spawning. The Infernal Drake we spoke about earlier hasn't been able to be visited by either team because of the counter rotation from MVP to answer. The duo lane entering top. Continues to be a rotation series. Karma and Tristana will be re-entering bot lane, so Machi trying to run MVP around the map.
Yeah, and of course, D with a little bit of extra wave clear does have the luxury of doing that. They are wasting a lot of time moving between lanes. Thankfully, with the clear, shouldn't lose too much. But now, going to be answered once again, as Maha and Max are just waiting to see where that bottom lane turns up to. And ADD says, what the heck are you still doing here? Well, oh no, jumps straight into a stun. Leap Strike gets ADD out to relative safety. Explosive Shot not doing too much damage just yet, with not as many points, only 3 in it so far.
And this is Machi just trying to rotate around the Jax, like I mentioned, trying to return to this lane swap meta. After that bad trade that Easy took where he almost died straight up in the 1v1, they're trying to keep trading around bot lane. Dreamer will spot Beyond, who's bot lane trying to relieve pressure. The duo lane's not here yet.
Yeah, they're actually looking to try and take Beyond down. That is the Fate's Call coming in, though, as in goes Max. The quickness getting everyone very, very low. The flash forward comes in, and Beyond launches himself forward, but it is going to be Max that grabs that kill. Daisy, sacrificial lamb.
Watch Ian, he's also bot lane. He's ghosted in.
Yeah, and Ian, the man that's normally just in the mid lane, is going to be able to take down Dreamer. Tazan, Root Caller comes in. Daisy gets a little bit mad, but should be taken down. Ian grabs that with the 3-punch.
And what we're seeing here is that, sure, Machi are trying to rotate around the Jax, but they're not taking the intermediate steps. They had no vision at all, no vision control in their own red side jungle. And Ian got to take the most direct path, ghosted through, popped over, and bounced over, and was able to get in there for a kill. Got the assassination. Even with Daisy out, they don't have the wave clear. This will be turret advantage to the side of MVP. And so far, rotating around the Jax, but not actually taking all the steps to make those rotations, is really costing Machi.
Yeah, it's a bit of a disaster. Tazan, that Root Caller was not necessarily lined up, and he's going to have to get his way out of this mid lane. But MVP have turned this around beautifully. It's close to a 2,000 gold lead. In fact, it's exactly a 2,000 gold lead. So you are going to have a look at this bot lane. Attempted dive by Machi once again.
And this part so far is fine, but when they start just poking in on Beyond, they're not going to kill him under turret. This is the part you start moving a little bit earlier, and then you realize, crap, we actually have no idea of where Orianna is. She's off the map for a long time, has a blast cone in just the perfect position. Just assassinate Dreamer on the back end, no longer on the Thresh, not able to save with anything other than AoE speed up. They get the maximum in the bot lane. Ian just casually able to take down the turret here in the mid lane. Getting it this low, and remember we started the game with a damn 2-0 Cassiopeia.
Yeah.
It's much more than MVP could ever have expected.
Well, still 12.5 minutes into the game. Apex does have his Rod of Ages completed. I'm sort of searching, doing that thing, Papa Smithy, where I'm a play-by-play, and I'm like, what are the positives? It's difficult here for Machi, but they do have that Rod of Ages done. At least Tazan does have his redemption as well, so he's picked that one up. The very supportive jungle of himself. As now Max presses as many buttons as he can on his way towards the top side. And where does MVP go next? Because we've seen MVP with leads like this before. Cast your mind back, Papa Smithy.
I try not to, Atlas.
To moments of MVP glory here in the summer split, where they do get these leads. Even against teams like SKT, they look absolutely brilliant at this part of the game. And they are very creative in their ways of losing after this.
And we saw it just as recently as yesterday, having a 4-0 Rek'Sai and then making a bad call around overforcing a Drake. So far, haven't needed to walk up to a Drake. Here's the bot lane. Yeah,
Beyond is actually going to launch his way in. Easy is down here, and MVP just decided to stave off the gank and not try anything funny.
Now, happy to use the Shockwave because at minimum it took out creeps, and we can see on our screens that Maha and Max are taking a turret in the top lane, so trading up in terms of objectives, or at least equalizing them, given that eventually Tristana will get that turret on bot side. Just going for a different build here. It will be the Blade of the Ruin King rush that was a previous build on Tristana, not the flat AD that we've been seeing in other regions. Right here, it's certainly going to be something that helps with specifically Beyond and Jax to some degree, trying to get out of the way of the Grandmaster at Arms, but not necessarily going to be the Infinity. It won't necessarily rip through members, like some of the other builds might.
Yeah, and of course won't do as much damage to the structures either, so changing things up. Of course, Tristana works as a pseudo-Caitlyn, like the poor man's Caitlyn, to just wander around the map and take turrets, which is what it looked like Machi were trying to do.
So what this item build does do is if they're in the same lane, if it's just Tristana versus Kalista, if they both have lifesteal, Tristana wins 100% of the time with the ability to counter slow with a Blade of the Ruin King, to have lifesteal, and also has the knockback on the ultimate. There's no world where you lose the 1v1. Kalista also builds for teamfights largely. Outside of yesterday, we expect the Blade of the Ruin King into the Hurricane to be the item build of choice from Maha. So there could definitely be punishment here in the 1v1 if that's how the lane assignments go.
We can see MVP getting Machi out of their jungle. Will be the blue buff going over to Ian there as well. And it's looking like control across the board for MVP at this stage of the game. And also looks like MVP have looked at yesterday and said, well, that was disappointing. We should have been able to win that game. It was messy. And it's not necessarily how close that game was or anything like that. It's not like OMG rolled over them in any regard. But as a Korean team, Koreans known for finesse on Summoner's Rift, and MVP were the 4th place team in spring. They did look good in spring. They were fun to watch. They were the team that could. And now they're the team that just flat out can't. And they need to try and get some form of respect from these other teams here.
I'm a fan of the Thomas the Tank Engine analogy with MVP, right? They were very much the little team that tried to build up, and certainly did finish 4th against all expectation in a league buoyed by all the big stars from China, the overseas Koreans returning to Korea to beef up the LCK. But then, let's talk about Machi, who, of course, must have been celebrating after their huge, unexpected victory over OMG yesterday. They come into this game, and what's been kind of the most stark difference for me is that their vision control has been almost entirely absent. They finally put their first control ward on the map just to the left of the dregs of the mid lane turret. They haven't been playing around vision. They've been rotating as 2-3-man, Karma, Tristana, and also the Ivan, trying to pick up turrets. But because they haven't been warding as they move, where they can go after they've lost skirmishes, after there's a gold lead to the enemy, is pretty minimal. And they're kind of barreling down mid lane, as that feels like one of the few safe places where they can enter, because right now the vision doesn't allow them to enter either the top or the bot side of the map very safely.
Well, ADD is going to get trapped here. He's going to use the flash, gets himself out of the way of the tether, but it's not going to save this turret as MVP are looking to try and collapse. Grand Challenge does come in. Daisy's trying to get the last couple of taps on this turret, but isn't going to be able to just yet. Oh my goodness. That was close. We get a hover on that turret health. That'd be fun. But I'm going to go with not much as the aggregate answer.
And that is empirically where it's at, but the problem is that they needed a little burst of gold from something like that turret to start answering what is a growing gold lead for MVP. Certainly it's something manageable. It's only 2,700 gold. MVP had a bigger lead yesterday, just as a point. But suddenly MVP, they keep pushing up. They do have coverage wherever they go. Beyond is actually going to replace the Gromp with a Rift Herald. That's an interesting decision. How would Gromp feel about that? That's her home. His home.
He's probably just going to say, oh, do I still have a job? It's like, you know how the machine comes in and it looks like it can do your job better than you? Like, what if you were the scribe at an office or something like that, and, oh no, they bought a printer? Because, I mean, Rift Herald's much better than a Gromp as far as doing damage. What kind of
I love
office?
your 2017 contemporary reference of a scribe being replaced by a printer.
It was a definite reach. I was struggling to find anything to say just there, but at least we got there.
You nailed
the analogy
it,
made
nailed
sense, okay? The classic Atlas analogy. Okay, ADD going to start splitting on the bottom side of the map, though, as I do my very best to dig myself out of that ridiculous analogy.
Notice he doesn't have vision, so he's going to start walking up, puts down a ward, spots Easy right in his face, so that gives him all the confirmation he needs. Still, thrift shopping is ADD, no Trinity Force, no Titanic Hydra just yet. Pretty much the same level of power as his opponent Easy. But when it comes to the map, we mentioned the Lane Kingdom approach of just throwing everything in the mid lane and trying to take turrets with Ivern, Tristana, and the Karma. The Rift Herald, that went to MVP. The Drakes, they'll go to MVP. Finally, they put some vision around the red side jungle just to give them a little bit of advanced information of where MVP is at, but almost feels like that information is a little bit early given that Baron doesn't spawn for another minute and 7 seconds, and it doesn't really give them anything. There's nothing they can actually take with the vision they put down around the 18-minute mark.
Yeah, and they're like a team that said, oh, we don't have enough vision, so let's get all of the vision everywhere with no real idea about what it's doing. I mean, yes, the Baron's going to be spawning in another 50 seconds, something like that, and if this was against the LPL, you'd be like, well, that means 50 seconds, someone's going to be going for a Baron. However, MVP probably not going to be going for that one, and there's no Dragon because that was just taken by Beyond. Like, where is the thing that they're warding for to try and make these wards mean something?
And what we're trying to say is, okay, we saw a lot of 20-minute Barons yesterday. Putting down vision around Baron is still smart, but actually the deep vision they got probably wasn't necessary. Just a vision just over the entrance to their blue buff is probably enough to let them know if Baron has been started. The advanced vision is not something they can really translate into advantages. So you're right, it's because vision is on this finite economy. It's no longer Season 4. Mata can't put down 800 pink wards everywhere and get advantages. So in this new meta, you need to move around your vision. So sure, certainly security around Baron against a Kalista team, not a trivial objective, but getting smart vision rather than just the most vision is what you have to do. And for now, Machi with a comp like this where it's about rotational play and playing through the Ivern, haven't been able to do that.
Well, Counter-Strike's going to go off. Easy, taking a bit of damage. And that empowered shot just does a lot of damage at this stage. We've got, oh no, all of the bits of a Trinity Force. Feels so bad, ADD. Disaster.
This is where you take a trade and then instantly teleport back with your full Trinity Force and kill them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're like, I know exactly how much damage to do. Boom.
Yeah.
Much
it's
more
like,
damage.
hang on a second, this isn't even my final form. It's like an episode of Dragon Ball Z on Summoner's Rift. You do need to then ask Easy to say, well, no, stop hitting me for a sec so I can charge my Spirit Bomb, but
you know, it's worth noting that
work.
I did really mess up a Dragon Ball Z reference, given that I've never watched Dragon Ball Z. So
oh no, what
please,
did you do?
I had the power levels, and
oh no,
I did screw it up. So if Achilles is watching this somewhere, he's judging me right now.
We were just recently talking about the new Dragon Ball Z game as well.
I mean, to be fair, we had a movie podcast on one of our LCK days about contemporary release Saving Private Ryan.
Yes.
What will we talk about next, Gone with the Wind?
Well, thankfully, like after that conversation, you actually watched Saving Private Ryan.
It was great.
It was very,
you were
very
there.
good. I was.
Seth
I was watching it for like the 7th time. Yes. Man, we were shaming him in real life. We don't need to do it on podcast. Oh, dear.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons why we're just playing around here is that Machi, they've lost a lot of steam. This comp from ahead is so oppressive. Everyone has played against an Ivern that gets a couple of kills on the enemy jungler, that takes away all the camps, that just keeps moving vision forward. And Tristana, one of the big reasons she's in the meta is, you know, the ability to just destroy turrets by looking at them. Right now, walking towards a turret in any lane other than mid outer was the easiest. Seems like a big risk given how many different flanks MVP can come from. And even if Jax teleports in, may not be a great team fighter, is a setup for the Shockwave with an AoE stun of his own. So the map is suddenly looking very thin, very shallow from the side of Machi, and their comp really only does push. So right now, it's just on MVP. What do MVP want to do? They're just going to keep stacking gold. They're going to turn on to Baron while Jax is in the face of the Jarvan.
Yeah, and in fact, no one knows that this
popped
Baron
over the
is
back.
going down. Yeah, exactly right. It's going to be Blast Cone that's going to help them out. Beyond doesn't even really care. Did he
What is
accidentally?
Beyond doing?
I think he accidentally went into the tunnel. He's like, I want to play Dolphins.
All right, there's
for a
the
moment.
information. Baron's at 5,000 health. Contest starts to come in.
Yeah.
No, they're just getting out.
Yeah, they are just going to get out. Maha just jumps over the back wall, and the Baron is going to reset. So worth a shot. Not a lot else was going on the map, and now Machi going to move themselves over. Daisy eyes off the Baron aggressively as a cupcake.
ADD falling low, so I imagine taking pretty active trades with Easy in the bot lane. This is at the point where Jarvan's just really asking for his team to give him a teleport ward, get him out of the laning phase. Ziv had such a happy time against Young, but it meant so little. Sorry, against Let Me yesterday, but it meant so little because of the fact that Jarvan's team fighting is so much more reliable. A split push is only relevant if other lanes are winning and the team with the split push is winning the Vision War. Because if either of those things fall apart, you're just like, okay, I'm going to teleport in Cataclysm and things will be all right. But now the Machi, we've already mentioned their struggles trying to get Vision. They're very much behind on the map. And the end result is that Jax is just piling on items. Hell, he's not even going to bother with the Titanic Hydra. It's play the Ruin King time, baby.
Yeah, he's going for the dueling build. Doesn't even care about wave clear after the Tiamat. It's not Titanic Hydra. Yeah,
this is a Jax that will not be kited. If someone blades him, he's blading them back.
Yeah, exactly. Boom, I'm even getting more movement speed
Yeah.
than you jerk. And then I got a Pahage proc. To smack
A
him in the
Pahage?
face. Pahage. Yeah.
That sounds like a drink you'd sip in Hawaii.
I know, I find it weird that people call it a phage. It's obviously a Pahage. Have you heard of Pahoenetic pronunciation?
You need to stop right now.
Okay, sorry.
I'm going to slap you, and that'll come through on this mic.
Most certainly will. But I want to talk about item spikes as well, Papa Smithy, because you've got the Luden's Echo coming in for Ian. He's got that on top of the Merlinomicon, even building towards his Void Staff already. And you've got the coveted items from Maha with the Blade of the Ruin King and the Hurricane. They are ready to do battle.
And look, you're obviously looking at the big numbers, the 10 stacks, and being excited by those. The item I want to talk about is the items on the way from the Ivern, because the Ivern build of rushing Redemption as fast as possible was target nerf, with Redemption only really being relevant if you have other modifiers. It scales very strong if you have increased healing and shielding 3 times as normal, but not if you just rush the Redemption. So the one item power spike is another one of the reasons why Ivern was taken out of the meta, because it feels much...
Whoa!
Oh, okay, that happened.
Sorry, I got very, very excited. But that is going to be Threezy taking down the Jax that we were just singing the praises of. Thank you very much for that ADD, making us look a little bit silly, but Easy just looking good. He got his 2 item spike and he made it count.
We were just, was having waxing lyrical, watching a Cloud Drake go down, and apparently there's a significant outplay in the bot lane. Maybe we'll get a replay to get a bit more information there.
Not sure what happened. Of course, being a pretty good duelist in the Jax, it's kind of his MO.
I imagine he took too many turret shots.
Hope so. He didn't die under the turret.
He didn't flash either.
Interesting.
Maybe. Feels MVP, man.
Yeah. It feels way too MVP, man.
And what people need to understand is the teleport play isn't always the biggest. All right, they were full health.
Oh, no, he thought he DC'd. No, that wasn't the case. Cataclysm comes in and he was trapped. Unfortunate.
I mentioned the turret shot.
He was battling both Threezy and the turret the entirety of his health bar.
That was a very Marin-esque play.
That was super
Viewers
Marin.
at home have watched Marin play this season. He is attracted to turret shots.
But he takes them not even in a 1v1. He takes them because he wants to take them. Like, he leads a minion wave as if the minion wave didn't know where to go. Like, that's what he does.
So ADD, that was a low light. His deep teleport also cost them around 17 minutes against OMG as well in their previous game. Can still rinse and repeat. Still will win a much more standard 1v1. The turret was the MVP in that particular case. Should be getting kill gold realistically.
Yeah.
But they can just reset. Jax will just go back bot lane. He didn't use any summoners, so doesn't have to have the Ultra Walk of Shame, because he can still force Jarvan to react in the bot lane. Waiting for this Baron play to happen, because honestly, this is one MVP can pull the trigger on. They are always trigger happy around Baron, even when it doesn't make any sense. When you have Callista with the Rend secure, this should be the wet dream for MVP, because if they do force it and get it low, they have the extra secure to take it down.
Yeah, they have the answers for this one, and ADD wants to be capitalized on. This is what we've seen, and conversations on the desk were about this a whole lot as well, because these 1-3-1, these 1-4 compositions haven't necessarily been figured out by a lot of these teams. We saw SKT make it work last night because they were able to rotate over to Huni when he got collapsed on, or capitalize on the rest of the map and leave Huni some space to work on that job.
And we can also flip the point around. They start the Baron, their Baron turn, is legit broken. They have Callista Rakan and also the Orianna Shockwave on top of it. You can't mess up that initiation. It's about 3 screens length away with the multiple dashes and also the Fate's Call. I mean, the extra gap close. So their ability to peel off, they get them low. They might even got kills with Shockwave. Oh no, there's Jax in the backline murdering people. They have so many different options around Baron that if we still see 2-3 more minutes with no Baron start, you're going to have to wonder, MVP. You've been given everything. Every scenario works for you. You just need to choose one and execute it. So I guess the one small thing you could do was get rid of the control ward that right now has been cleared around the blue buff, put down a teleport ward, and just beckon Jax over by starting the Baron.
Yep, some extra vision has been picked up by Machi, but the turret is going to fall down on the bottom side of the map. The Fisherman himself was easily able to deal with it with a few auto attacks, especially now that he has that Blade of the Ruin King. Not going to be as worried about easy, but probably still doesn't want to go under an inhibitor turret and do battle. Okay, Maha does have to flash himself out of the way. Tezan just got the better of him there.
Now there is 2 blue trinkets on the side of Machi, a lot of spot vision available. Neither of them are used just yet. There's the first, they get the information. Apex is certainly eyeing a flash ult here.
Yeah, looking for it onto Maha. The dance around does come in. Maha pops himself over the wall. Teleports are going to be invested by both. Top lane is 2-man Shockwave as Tezan is going to shield himself up. Redemption comes in, heals up. Machi is now Maha. He's still alive. Kills D, who went way too aggressive. As easy, he should fall down as well. ADD is the one chasing after him. Shoots him with his sword, which is definitely something that he wants to be doing. Apex is going to have to flash over the wall, and it's a double kill for the Jax. Dream of the last man standing, and MVP are going to let him go and take down a Baron.
And that fight really shows how compositionally MVP was set up to take the Baron. They botched that engage about as much as possible, but had the gold, were able to turn, had so many different tools. You miss one, you miss 2, you divide up into 3 groups, it still works. They'll happily turn onto Baron, focus it down, maybe Max will die, whatever, as they're trying to take down the Baron. This will be Baron going to MVP.
Yeah, Beyond, of course, trying to tank this one up, but does have Command Protects now as well. Use it on Max, please, because he's just going to flat out die. Not going to happen as Maha just rends the big purple worm to death. And let's have a look at this fight one more time.
So a lot of things happen here. The contest starts to come in. Maha skips over the back. They get off the Baron. For MVP, that's actually an improvement. They usually overforce it. Big DPS down. But Maha's actually left to be assassinated. D gets free damage on him. No one dies with him. So D, the rocket jump was too deep. I like what he was doing earlier. Could have argued that Maha would have been out of the fight anyway. ADD able to go to the top side. And Machi, for the majority of this, were grouped as 3, as 4, trying to play around each other. But in the end, the gold really outdid them. D going down first was the big problem. MVP could have been cleaner in execution. But when you draft these comps, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be SKT. When you have so many different dashes and engage tools, MVP overall stuck the landing. They get the Baron, and now the game may be wide open for an MVP victory.
Yeah, and look, they're going all in on D here as well, and that makes sense. They've got the double shield composition with the Ivern and the Karma, so Dreamer picks up the Ardent Sensor, looking to try and make this Tristana do as much auto attack damage in team fights as they possibly can. However, he can't be rocket jumping away from his team when they have a composition that moves forward with the Tristana. Draw a bead passive really starting to stack up at level 14. ADD getting ultimated. As now Apex looking to try and take him down. Freezy may just fall, but doesn't actually get the stun. Isn't a problem as the knockup is going to be there. And can MVP actually capitalize as there was 2 versus 1 up on the top side? Looks like no, as Ian's going to continue pushing there in the mid lane. Yeah,
Rakan, Callista, and the Rex are not going to do a lot of work in the bot lane, but the mid lane turret is indefensible. So overall, do get an objective, and ADD didn't burn any summoners for that.
Oh no, Daisy, don't face check that.
Daisy's dead. Yeah. She'll be back soon, though.
Dead cupcake. Yeah, best deft impression. No,
MVP.
that was me.
I also take your point about Tristana in terms of the itemization. I feel like if you're going to go protect the Tristana, why go Blade Phantom Dancer and then also for the Lord Dominic's regard? I think you have to go max damage, Infinity Edge, and a double Zeal item, whichever ones you're feeling, because he's kind of gone for a duelist Tristana, and then they're playing a team fight game because, of course, you have, as you mentioned, Ivern Karma, you're going for very much a 5v5. It's not the highest damage Tristana build, and if Tristana turns on Maha and Ian with an Infinity Edge, they could die in 3 crits, but if he turns on them with the Blade of the Ruin King, it takes a lot longer. The formation is there. They're in a gold deficit. I think you have to go greedy if you start to fall behind. even if the itemization doesn't feel great, play the Ruin King Infinity Edge, then a Zeal, for example, rather than just putting together what is a decent build for killing Beyond eventually. But given that he's so heavily required to do damage, not a decent build for the 5v5.
Yeah, and he only has one armor item and a cloth armor, does Beyond. So, and Beyond's also built a Randuin's Omen when D doesn't crit, so maybe that's his theory. Yeah, it's like, oh, I've only got 20% crit, I'm just going to be doing percent health damage, so joke's on you, Beyond. But this is the second time we've had item build question marks for D. The Sterix gauge coming out of his Callista yesterday. Even though it was a victory, it wasn't necessarily a build that made you feel good.
And it's a bit of a hollow victory when you have the Blade of Ruin King versus Randuin's, because sure, I guess you could argue that it's like a duel. And, you know, you started off the duel by losing the rock, paper, scissors, but you brought your sword and he forgot his sword, so that's kind of a problem.
Yeah. It's like, strategically we lost, but it doesn't actually matter, so that's fine. I can understand that decision, though.
It means so much for MVP to pick up the victory here. They would have really looked at this tournament, probably told about it just a few months ago, was a new addition to the Riot calendar, and thought, okay, finished 4th, we missed out on making it to finals, or making it to MSI, but we grew to 4th. That was a big win for MVP. They wouldn't have been shooting to be a top 3 team. They don't have necessarily the history or the players to do that. They kind of got their maximum. They got this tournament, and this season was supposed to be about codifying MVP as a top team. That's not what's happened in the LCK, but picking up a victory on the international scene would be so big, a big boost to their confidence, and might actually affect the second round robin as well. Yeah,
and we've seen international tournaments like this breathe new life into teams a lot of times. I mean, WE also at this tournament, a perfect example back at IEM, I think it was a couple of years ago now, when Shea just joined the lineup. And from that point on, WE looked like a completely different team. Yes, they did have different players, but the standings changed immediately when they made it back to the LPL. And sometimes it just takes a change of scenery to really update things. And MVP looking to try and do their very best to change their stars after the loss against OMG.
And Machi are playing at their inhibitor turret line, which isn't ideal. They want to be pushing out. That's not possible to them. Kind of their quandary right now is the only way they can potentially win a fight involves Jarvan initiating as the foremost person, and yet Jarvan is being occupied completely by Jax in the bot lane, just slowly losing minions and turret HP to the Jax. So that if they keep ADD in the bot lane and as a 4-man go top, go mid, it feels like Machi have no way to initiate. A flash ult from Cassiopeia, easy to be turned around from, and other than that, they're very heavily reliant on Jarvan being there, and Jarvan's the only person to answer the Jax. So right now, it just feels like MVP keep inching forward, keep amassing a CS lead, waiting for a second Baron. And given that we've seen the game played exclusively up to maybe the Raptor line of Machi, no further, it's going to be a free Baron in just about a minute and a half, unless the game dramatically changes.
Yeah, and it's really nice suffocating play out of MVP. You mentioned that this is the move the ward line up that we've seen out of teams like SKT over and over again, where you don't need wards elsewhere because you've got every single choke point picked out, and you keep the pressure on the entire time. They are going to move back now, waiting for that Baron to respawn in a minute. Grab some extra items. That's 4 on Ian, who's looking terrifying, as well as close to that Mercurial Scimitar done. And wow, okay, yeah, ADD is just going to get a Spirit Visage from a couple of bits that he had in his inventory.
Yeah, very, very high damage Jax build. You don't normally see the 3 damage items, kind of cribbing the same style from Cuvée and his full damage Gnar builds. Yeah. Just the Spirit Visage to try and shake away the first round of damage coming through from the Cassiopeia. So an Initiation Jax build can both duel and be a ball carrier with this build. So even more headaches for the side of Machi. MVP turning onto the Baron, 30 seconds till it spawns. They can even hold the Rift Scuttler clear until getting the maximum value from the speed up as the Baron spawns. And Machi, they just have no options. They can't push in any lane. They don't have true initiation unless the Jarvan is there. A Jarvan teleport over and teamfight doesn't go 4 for 1 or better. They might just lose the game to a split pusher as well.
Yeah, onus
Suffocation was the right word.
Yeah, onus is so far on Machi, but feels like now any decision they make is going to be the wrong one. MVP have been playing this out strategically very, very well, and against what has been their MO in the LCK recently, now setting themselves up because they know M17 not an opportunity to check apart from that one last remaining.
Go time!
Okay, they're going to jump in. Massive 4-man knock-up from Max. The Shockwave doesn't get the targets, but this is a split fight. now for Machi. In goes Beyond, but he gets exhausted immediately.
Jax walking up.
So much damage as Max, another knock-up. In goes the Jax, launches into the backline, and that Thunderdome set up from 3Z is not what they wanted. I'm Jarvan, I'm helping, and I've been aced as MVP dominate the base.
They had so much initiation, finally got it. Was it perfect? Was there the burst there? No. But after that, Jax walks up. The rest is history. Perfect ace coming through from MVP. They will extend Korea's record to 4-1, and they will not go 0-2 on their debut on the international stage.
Yeah, and we need to caveat this as well with the fact that Machi looked great against OMG, but MVP in this game looked much better than they have back in Korea, than they did yesterday. This is more controlled play. It's the disgusting Rakan-Kalista combination. Their draft looked better. Like, everything that you can say about MVP yesterday is different and changed and updated and upgraded here today.
And it feels like the scouting report that people had for Machi before this tournament was true of this game, but wasn't true of the new things they showed against the side of OMG. They brought in the Corki, they adjusted their champion pools and did fantastically. This was the old Machi, and you think about who was causing all the pressure previously. It was the Thresh from Dreamer, and it was the pressure from the Apex jumping on the Corki. In this game, Cassiopeia, after not getting things done early, provided no pressure. They needed the Ivern to make the plays to have pressure. They didn't have those either, and it wasn't the Thresh anymore. It was the flex pick Karma, so no pick CC from the support role. The people that did so well yesterday were kind of stymied from having the same impact today. And MVP, they didn't make the massive mistakes. Was it perfect play? No, we can't expect that from MVP at this tournament. But they do go 1-1, and with how this season has gone, they have overall done their region proud, given relative expectation.
Yeah, of course. And this, if you had have given me this matchup yesterday, before we'd seen their matchup against OMG, then I would have said, look, this could have been a different experience. However, MVP looking fantastic this time around. But we are going to throw it back to the desk to break down that game.
Thank you, gentlemen. With that victory, LCK are now 4-1, but OMG are the only team to take them down, so I still think LPL in the driver's seat.
I don't know. Oh, wait a minute. What do you guys think about that?
But I'll take it. We'll take everything we can at this stage, to be honest. But hey, we're still second. We've got a lot of games to go there until we get to that point. But still, yeah, not a win on the board.
That said, let's kind of cut to the meat of this and bring up the draft first and foremost. Because I know when we were looking at those compositions, we were like, okay, Machi, they have the right idea. They draft a Siege composition. They pulled out the Tristana. And Rusty, I know you had a couple of things to say about that.
I mean, what Machi did was, by all means, still good. Of course, MVP, they picked themselves a standard comp. But when you actually contrast this, protect the Tristana, very much valid. You go Infinity Edge, you get your 2 Zeal items, you have a grand old time with your Warlord's Bloodlust, sustain to compensate for the lifesteal. Note, none of that happened. Literally none of that happened. He went Blade of the Ruin King, Fervor of Battle, went towards a very abstract, like defensive kind of build. And in a composition that is about protecting you, you need to be doing damage, not preventing it from happening to you. That's your team's job.
That may be the case. And even going off of the pick ban, I favored MVP's draft simply because they had a strong engage force with the Kalista and the Rakan as well. So that was going to be able to deal with the Siege composition that was coming out of the comp here. So that was one aspect. And of course, the Rek'Sai being picked up by MVP. All of it really held true that MVP going to have to deal with, of course, the Siege comp pretty easily. Yeah,
so Raz a favor of the Yo-Yo. Pulse, we did have the Jax. I believe Jax has been used 3 times in the tournament. Ziv, probably the best use of it, but it was still about that 5v5. Huni also picked it up. Did it actually work here? Was Jax relevant to victory, or was he just along for the ride?
Well, love me some Jax, but the problem was, yes, but he was not necessarily using the Jax in a good way. He was still split pushing, great. Came into the final team fight. We all saw how much damage he did, but it was not executed particularly well. We saw him dive the turret multiple times against Jarvan. When Jarvan's getting a solo kill against Jax, when he's like almost 2 items, something has gone wrong. But still, it was a composition that is very hard to mess up. You click all your R buttons and you just go in. And that's simply how they won the game in the end.
Okay, that said, let's actually break into the game this time around. Now, we do have a replay for you guys, because the first blood, we have to talk about it. You have 2 losing lanes, effectively, out of Machi's composition. But when you're given a first blood like this, or excuse me, 2 kills for Cassiopeia, suddenly that becomes even. But then MVP, they answer, and they start taking down people individually in every single lane.
Yeah, in this instance, of course, Apex goes in. He doesn't even blow the flash from Rek'Sai to be able to deal with it. And wasn't playing towards the side of his jungler. And this was a funny point that Jax was dominating the top lane matchup. This was just after Rek'Sai visits the mid lane and gets a second kill for himself. And so I was just wondering, what is happening here on the side of Machi Esports, that they're falling so far behind? Beyond doesn't have to take a visit to the top lane because every lane is simply just winning on the side of MVP.
Yeah, a lot of desperate movements started to come out of Machi at like 10 odd minutes into the game. It continues through to about 12 minutes where things start to really break open for MVP to have an advantage. That was your first example of the beginning of the downfall of Machi in this particular best of one. And a lot of that was enacting the lane swap, putting the Tristana to the Jax lane, which very much is a fair strategy, something you should continue to do throughout all of the games that you play to take down the Jax and to prop up your Tristana, accelerate the game. She's very good at taking turrets. The problem is they were one step in, they never got to the second step, never got to the third step because their first step wasn't executed well. They didn't have the vision set up, and they tried to do the second and died.
So, Rusty, I want to kind of expand on that and maybe push back a little further. Were Machi making the correct decisions with what they were trying to do strategically and just not good enough comparatively to MVP's talent, or did they actually just make poor choices this game to lose?
I think early game they made good choices. They were making the right decisions. They broke the laning phase where they had a fed Cassiopeia, so you want to isolate that lane and try and actually empower that a little bit more. Have your Ivern pivot between the winning lanes, which is where your Tristana and your support are against the Jax, and where your Cassiopeia is mid to actually just have a strong half of the map. Use that to win that whole half of the map. Could have timed with the Rift Herald spawning. Like, everything was right from them. It's just that when they went to do it, when they went to execute, they weren't successful.
Yes, and of course, everything came to a head when we did have that Baron fight. I felt like kind of this Baron dance, and then MVP just broke the tension, taking the 5v5, taking the Baron, and then eventually the game.
This was an interesting fight, and I use it as the caster word here because it was very sloppy. Papa Smithy said it himself that pretty much everything that could be botched was botched here by M17. And right here, it's like, all right, we've actually got a couple of people in a bunch, and maybe we can nuke down Beyond, but they simply just do no damage. And because Rek'Sai Ultimate right now, you could buy so much time, M17 were like, well, I guess we'll just go full Scooby-Doo, split, search for clues, we all died. And it was just the Baron fight that decided the game. We knew from there on out, it was essentially going to be the MVP slow roundup of the rest of the game.
Yeah,
there, Raz.
Slow worked well. Like that's the proper word for it because that's what they've been playing towards. It seemed like a slow game. They bought their 5 control wards, and that's why it was just a proper advantage for MVP once they started up the Baron, and that's why Orianna was able to get a proper shockwave just to start us off. So that was a great setup from MVP to make the Baron fight really tilted in their favor.
So the million-dollar question, if Tristana had gone the Warlords, if she had gone the Infinity Edge, at that moment there, is that a different team fight and a different game? Was this just Trist having that defensive build where they didn't have the follow-up damage?
Unfortunately, probably still no, because even if you chunk through the Rek'Sai, everyone else was still healthy, and they all won their own individual matchups. And plus, you also have to look towards that Cassiopeia. Gets the double kill at the start of the game. You're expecting these dual damage threats, and if that still didn't work, then you get to that point in the game. Unfortunately, every lane lost, as you were alluding to earlier, Raz, and simply that doesn't work out. Something had to fundamentally change earlier on.
And I do wonder if fundamentally, in that vein, they would have changed how they played the fight, though, if the Tristana had built properly. Have a bit more threat, but the timing of the threats around the energized auto attacks, maybe they didn't just straight up YOLO their way in. Maybe the Tristana doesn't jump on top of the enemy AD carry when there is a Rakan there to knock her up.
Don't get me wrong, I think she should have built crit. I'm not denying that fact, but I fully agree with you. Probably wouldn't have changed.
But in the end, it is that tanky front line that slowed down the defensive build from Tristana. Key player goes to Beyond there on the Rek'Sai. So he's had a pretty good tournament despite them only being 1-1. You know, went off in the early game across from OMG, picking up 4 easy kills, and now grabbing the victory this time today.
Interestingly enough, of course, both junglers played Rek'Sai in their first game, and it appears that the Rek'Sai is going to be the winner between both of the players in this one as well. The Ivern did not feel impactful in comparison.
So very quickly, do you guys think that Rek'Sai is the jungler to prioritize in this tournament, or are we still going to see the Elise as the Lee Sins?
Rek'Sai is strong into Elise, so I think that from answering your question, you can't just early pick the Elise anymore. I think that Rek'Sai is looking to be the stronger jungler, so it's going to change up the meta a little bit of what do you want to actually pick into the Rek'Sai. Is it going to be the Gragas? You still have a rough early on. So for now, I think if you have your hands onto the Rek'Sai, that's a good idea.
I mean, it feels regional to me. You know, the Korean sides are very much on the Rek'Sai. They're always picking it, and it's also red side as a champion of choice.
And of course, I'm going to let you guys finish, but we are going to toss to an interview. Wendy, take it away.
Hello everyone. Thank you for watching our 2017 Rift Rivals, and we will be interviewing Ian, MVP's mid laner. He said hi. So we did hear that MVP and Machi trains together. So we're now telling him that.
요즘은 아니었던 것 같고 이제 예전에 저희가 자세히는 기억 안 나는데 예전에 좀 했었어요.
He said that he sort of forgot that, and that they do not really train together anymore. So we're asking how would he comment on Machi as a team?
아직 한 판밖에 경기로는 안 했고 지금으로 봤을 때는 좀 뱀픽 쪽을 잘한다고 생각하는 것 해요.
So he said that they've only versed each other once, so he cannot really formulate a comment. We asked him, has he watched OMG's match? And we're asking how does he feel when he watched it?
좀 저희가 OMG한테 졌는데 이제 그 팀을 이겼으니까 좀 많이 긴장됐는데 좀 잘한 것 같고 여전히 그 경기도 잘하신 것 같아요.
因为昨天 Machi 打赢 OMG， 所以他们觉得他们打赢 Machi， 所以他们觉得很开心。
So he is very happy because yesterday Machi won against OMG and now they won against M17. So he's very happy.
초반에 킬을 좀 따이셨는데 그때
So the question was, did you
일단은 최대한
stop the
멘탈을 잡았고
M17's momentum?
제 라이너가 2킬을 먹었잖아요. 그래서 제가 라인전 하면서 좀 괜찮겠다 싶어가지고 다들 멘탈 잡고 내가 더 열심히 할 거니까라고 좀 정글을 많이 부르긴 했어요.
他说就是更集中精神了，因为然后神女吃到2颗头，所以他还让
So he is very hyped because winning is like winning two teams at the same time.
이제 특별히 정글을 불러가지고 케어해달라고 부탁드린 거 맞죠?
네.
对，他说就是特别去 call JG 的。
So at first they did sort of like a losing game, but how did you change the game's tide?
이제 다시 이기게 됐는데 어떻게 해서 이게 성공한 건지.
일단은 정글러가 미드갱을 성공해서 이제 제 쪽 주도권을 잡고 다른 라인도 알아서 다 잘해주니까 자연스럽게 시야를 먹게 된 것 같아요.
因为一开始 JG 有 gank 到中路，然后他拿到兵线的主导权，然后
So at first the jungler didn't make a successful gank, and that's how he started the advantage and started stonewalling. So let us congratulate MVP for having the success, first win.
Cool, thank you so much, Wendy. That said, M17 and MVP has been wrapped up, but do not go anywhere because KT Rolster will make their debut right after this.
Over the top, but is it a bait? First blood is going to go to the Cassiopeia, and they're getting the resets. D's looking for one, double kill. ABD's one chasing after him, shoots him with his sword, which is definitely something that he wants to be doing. Apex is going to have to flash over the wall, and it's a double kill. One blast remaining.
Go time.
Okay, they're going to jump in. Massive 4-man knock-up from Max. The Shockwave doesn't get the targets, but this is a split fight. Now for Machi, in goes Beyond, but he gets exhausted immediately.
Jack's walking up.
So much damage as Max, another knock-up. In goes the Jack, launches into the backline, and that Thunderdome set up from 3Z is not what they wanted. I'm Jarvan, I'm helping.
They will extend Korea's record to 4-1, and they will not go 0-2 on their debut on the international stage.